Okay, just another quick vid. I'm still running it, daily driving it. Just watching the control pressure drop down. It's been stood about 20 minutes, but it's still holds some pressure. I'm not sure if that's exactly right, but it still retains pressure. I've just been playing about with the control pressure again. I've lowered it down from, I had it on 49. And at that, it's starting lovely in the mornings. Perfect, starts perfect in the morning. If it's really cold, it revs a little higher with an auxiliary air thing, lets a bit more air in. If it's warm, it just starts up and ticks over. Doesn't cut out or anything like that. Even if you put it straight in gear, it's quite fine. And it goes reasonably well. Don't think it goes as well as it did when I had the warm control pressure lower. I don't think it goes as well as that. So what I've done was I've lowered it down to 40. I thought I'll just take 8 psi off the warm control pressure and see what it runs like. The guy who does the videos of the Golf, where he does the conversion, he does the modification where you can screw it underneath like I've done in the other videos. He was talking about the control pressure is normally about 50, which that was there about 50. And he was saying you can lower it down to sort of 30, 35. Now, I don't know as I want to go down that far. I don't know how this will affect the cold starting. This is why I'm doing it a little bit at a time. But I've lowered it to 40, and I'll see if it sounds a bit healthier when you rev it up. I'm finding it sort of goes well, but sort of first little bit of the throttle, it's the revs, the power's not straight there. But when it's cold, it is. It feels like as soon as you touch the throttle, it's doing something, which would be more obvious because that's control pressure is lower when it's really, really cold. So the plunger, the flap will move more and put fuel in quicker. When the flap moves a little bit, I put more fuel in. So it was a little bit, there's like a little bit of not a dead spot, no hesitation or anything, but look like a little bit where it was kind of a bit fluffy and it didn't really accelerate much and didn't seem to have much power right at the beginning of the acceleration. If you floor it, it goes like a bloody bat out of hell. But yeah, so I've just played about with it. I mean, I took it down to 40, and it was around about, I'd set it at 40, just under 50, but it was kind of just hovering around. This gauge ain't brilliant. It's not the best of things. It was just about 50. So, and like I say before, I had it on 46, and it seemed to go like stink. But obviously it didn't start properly because the cold control pressure was wrong. So I'm not sure whether I've lowered it too much and that'll affect the cold control pressure. But I mean, that's only the first few minutes, really. I think it took about 2 or 3 minutes for it to get up to, it started at around 20, and within a couple of minutes it had gone up to 50. So it's only a few minutes, so that doesn't make a vast amount of difference on the control, on the starting side of things. So hopefully, even if it coughs, if it's a bit rough just for a first minute, as long as it's not cutting out stuff, I don't mind sitting there for a minute and just letting it just tick over for a minute and then driving off. That's fine. If it means that it goes a bit better. Not saying better. I just want it to try. Just messing about really, just pissing about really. I could just leave it as it is and it's perfect to drive, but it's just in the back of my mind that maybe it should go a little bit better. Problem is I've not had another one, so I've not driven another one, so I've got nothing to compare it to. So I'm used to my modern Scirocco, which is really quick, off the mark and stuff. It's not a big car like this, not a V8 obviously, just a 2 litre. So it's not really a comparison. This is a bit smoother and the power's like clean, all in one, one big band, whereas a Scirocco is like a little hairdryer thing. It revs up really quick. It's got a turbo as well, so you feel more of a pull. So I'm used to that. So I'm comparing this to that, which is completely different because that's a diesel, makes most of its power low down, and this makes most of its power higher up, which I'm not used to. I think that's half the problem. I'm not giving it enough welly. Because it sounds so loud, I'm kind of like, oh, it's revving too much, but it's not. Most of the time I don't take it above 2,000 revs, and it seems quite happy at that. It pulls really nice at that. So I'm thinking maybe I'll lower it to 40. If it doesn't start brilliantly then then I might just raise it back up to sort of 45 and then see what it does then. If it coughs and splutters a little bit, but it's pretty okay, but it goes like stink when it's warmed up, then I'll probably leave it, because I'm not bothered, you know. Like I say, 1 or 2 minutes when you first start it up, that's, you know, it doesn't do it any harm to leave it running for 1 or 2 minutes anyway. You know, when you first start it, let the oil get around when it's cold and whatever. But yeah, we'll see. We're still, you know, still playing. Now I've got all this setup sort of sorted out now. I mean, like I say, this is just a brake hose off a VW air cooled, and that's just got a bit of PTFE tape straight onto the outlet there. Then I've got a piece of flexible pipe onto the end, the threaded end of that. Just 2 clips there. My gauge is obviously there. Then that's on, and then this is just pushed over the sort of the ferrule bit on the end of the pipe, and then I put a Jubilee clip the other side of it, and that's brilliant, doesn't leak at all. And then with this bar sort of just loosened, not that taken off, but just both ends loosened, you can lift that up quite easily enough and adjust it as at your will. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's not, you know, it's probably, in letting it warm up, it's probably an hour's job. If you don't let it warm up, I've let it warm right up to temperature, and check this as well, because it does seem to change. Even though the first couple of minutes it's nearly up to 50, but when it's warmer, it does change a little bit, because obviously possibly the heat has an effect on the bimetallic strip a little bit as well, possibly, and the fuel temperature of the engine, and the air valve and stuff. So I let it get up to temperature and then check it so it's proper warm control pressure. So yeah, I'm just letting it die down a bit, so when I take that pipe it don't piss fuel everywhere. But it doesn't seem to. Like I say, I could adjust the low pressure a bit more, but I don't really want to mess too much with that, because I don't want the pin to spin around. So we'll see what happens. I think it's kind of, I'll get to the point where if I raise that, you know, if that cold control is too low now, if I raise that, then I'm raising the warm control pressure a bit. It's got to have a slight effect on it, obviously, so it's kind of just finding the right balance. But the fact it's adjustable both ways makes it brilliant, really. And if I ever do find somebody who's an expert on it locally, who's reasonably priced, once I've done everything else, I might take it to somebody and say, yeah, can you put it on a rolling road and proper set it up and get it? Because really you need to know what the mixture is when it's higher up the revs. I might even consider putting one of those wideband CO sensors, whatever they call them, in the exhaust, and then I can see what the mixture is higher up, and then I can play about with the fuel control pressure to get it bang on right. Mustn't forget to take that adjuster. That's my homemade Allen key adjuster out. I keep thinking if I shut the bonnet down with that in, it's not going to be pretty. It's already got a dint on the inside where somebody's filled it on the outside. But yeah, just playing with both things. Been doing the VW engine as well, but trying to use this every day. I'm up to nearly 430 mile now. I've got a new set of plugs, because I realised I bought a set of leads and they didn't fit, but I realised the proper plugs for this, they come with like an end, like a riveted end sort of, that doesn't come off, and that's what the plugs I've got are for. They're for the proper plugs that they should have with the proper ends on. The distributor cap is like just the sort with a spring where it's got a threaded bit on. But I'm thinking the bits off a plug that screw off the plugs, I can screw them onto the distributor cap, and them leads seem to push on. Because one of the leads has got a bit where it's chafed through a bit, and one of them is sort of, I put one of the new ones on and cobbled it together with a bit of the old one and whatever. And I think what I want to do is do the leads and stuff. If it runs okay now, then what I'm going to do is take the plugs out, put some new plugs in, clean the plugs up, put the new leads on, and then run it like that. And then when I do another service on it, I can take the plugs out and have a look at the colour of the plugs, which tells you what it's really running at. But yeah, so busy. Weekends come in. I might come on Sunday if it runs like a bag of crap tomorrow morning when I start it. I might come on Sunday and just put the pressure to 45. I mean, I've only dropped to 8 ps, well, about 10 psi, but I think 50 warm control is on the sort of high side a little bit, possibly. I don't know. It's hard to read between the lines what everybody says on Tinternet. Some people say various different things with vacuum, without vacuum, and whatever. But yeah, I'll see what it goes like on the way home. Hopefully I won't get any speeding tickets, and then we'll see what it starts like going shopping in it tomorrow morning. We'll see what it starts like tomorrow morning, and if it starts okay tomorrow morning and it still goes a bit better than it did this morning, then I think we'll leave it at that. I might get the mixture checked back at the MOT, because I'm aware that I've tweaked that slightly. I'm aware that obviously if you lower the fuel control pressure, you raise the emissions on tick over. So I've backed that off, because I set it at about 2%. I've backed that off a little bit, weakened that a little bit, so it should be not far off right, but there's no point trying to adjust that and guess it, because the amount of the sort of, you move it a bit and it changes it a lot, and then you move it a little bit less and it changes it more. It's very sensitive. It's hard to know if you're moving it, how much you're moving it, so it needs to be done on the emission tester. But my local MOT man's a nice guy, and he lets me go on his machine. I buy him a can of beer now and again. He'll let me set it up on his machine while he's having his dinner or at the end of the day. And it doesn't take 5 minutes, you know, just warm the car up first, take it up there and just tweak it. I think I'll keep it at about 2%. Some people on the fuel injection ones, I think they say 0.5% to 1%, but I seem to read on these it seems to be sort of 2 to 3, something like that. I think the limit on these MOT wise is 3.5 or 4.5, but obviously that's way too rich, I think. My carburettor guru has been doing it years and years, said 3%, but I'm not sure how much the idle mixture affects it higher up the reg. Supposedly people are saying it does, but then some people say no, it doesn't at all. It just affects where the flap starts, but only to a very fine degree. So it does affect the upper, you know, mixture slightly, but not a vast amount, not as much as the fuel pressure. So yeah, so if you're enjoying the vid, subscribe. I'll try and do some more bits and bobs on the Porsche. I've got a feeling there's something not quite right with the brakes. It does tend to not pump up, but the brakes don't feel as hard, or, well, they feel fine, but they just don't feel as good as they should, I don't think. And I've just got a warning light on today. Well, then again, all the warning lights come on randomly now and again, and then you turn it off and on again and they all go off. But I think the brakes, when I press the brake, you've got to press it fairly hard to get the brake lights to come on. And there is 2 brake light switches, and I only replaced the one. And I think the other wire, so it might be that one does a lower pressure when you're just touching it on the front brakes, and then the backs will come on later. So that's why I'm having to press it hard to get the lights to come on. That's why you have 2 switches. So I might put it on the other switch the wires around and see what it does. I might even try, I'll have a look next time it's on the lift, at the bleed nipples. I might even try bleeding the brakes, because thinking about it, there's no obvious leaks on them, and they were a little bit seized up, but they freed off dead easy. But it's been stood sort of 14 years, so maybe it's got water in the brake fluid. Maybe it's got crappy brake. Maybe the brake fluid's gone off or gone a bit funny, which would make the pedal a bit spongy and not as effective. So if the bleed nipples look like they'll come undone, I might just bleed it and put plenty of fluid through it. So basically change the brake fluid in it before I do any more, like put a master cylinder on or anything, or calipers or anything like that. I mean, they work fine, but they just don't feel as good. It's hard to know, 'cause some people say these aren't as good as the S4s because they've only got 2, but they don't feel as robust as they should, considering it's got discs all the way around. There's no leaks or anything, but we'll have to see. That's a job for another day. Well, everybody have a good weekend. Subscribe if you're liking the vids. Give me some likes, give me some comments. Tell me what your Porsche's costing you, because mine's bankrupting me. To be fair, you've got to take these as they come. You know, for what I paid for it, £4,000, you know, I think I did pretty well compared to some I've seen for sale. There's another guy who does videos on YouTube, and he's got a brownie one, and I think he paid near £5,000 for that. And I looked at that, well, I saw it on eBay, and his engine was seized, and there's lots of stuff wrong with that, whereas most of the stuff worked on this. It didn't take too much to get it working once I'd sorted the engine. And like I say, the engine wasn't seized, it was just the head gaskets, and the body on his was pretty rough, and his interior was pretty rough, and my interior is pretty good, and the body's pretty decent on this. So I think I did all right. I mean, I think, you know, you can probably pick there's one on eBay at the moment for probably 12 grand. You can pick up a nice one like this, an early one. This ain't going to stand me at that when it's done. It's not going to be far off probably when I've painted it and everything. But then again, this has got a rebuilt engine now, and rebuilt fuel system. Whereas a lot of the ones you buy, yeah, they might run fine and whatever, but if the engine's not been to bits, the chances are at some point the head gasket's going to fail, because they go with age as well. And you get corrosion, you know, the corrosive stuff. They put the wrong antifreeze in and it knackers them up. So, you know, you could buy one for 12 grand and then a couple of years down the line end up rebuilding the engine. And if you can't do it yourself, you know, you're talking a lot of money. I mean, I don't know how many hours it took me to do the engine, but you're talking a lot of money to rebuild it. Wasn't horrendous on parts, you know, but luckily my crank was okay and stuff. But you're throwing a lot of money at these things. The way I see it, I'm kind of just enjoying driving it. I'm enjoying having one. Never thought I'd get one, so I'm happy to have one. And I shall improve it gradually as I use it, you know. And then when I've got it running and driving and I've done all the bits I want and everything's working, then I'll probably give it a nice coat of paint, you know, and that'll be all I do. That'll be all I do on it, and just enjoy driving it. I do have a dream of driving to the Nuremberg ring in it and going around. And the missus isn't so keen because she's seen me driving. But yeah, I think if I drove all the way there in this and wanted to go around the track, I think I probably would just drive around reasonably sedately, because you've got to drive all the way back to England. Unless you've got recovery, I suppose. You've got to go for it, haven't you? I think I'd do a few laps with the missus, and then I'd go out on my own and do a couple of laps and just give it some welly. Hopefully not break it. But it should be fine, you know, but it's an old car, isn't it? But I'd be interested to see what it did in you know, on the top end, on a straight line, on a nice track where I could give it some, really open it up. I don't know how well it would do round the corners and stuff. I don't think it would do bad, but it's not really that kind. It's more of a GT car, so I think the tight bends and the, you know, the real fast tight bends, it probably wouldn't handle so well. But I don't know. It doesn't seem too bad. I suppose I'm not quite used to it yet, but yeah. So I'll see you next time.